Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode. Today, we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is partner in crimes, product and insights. And what we're going to discuss in that is how brands can drive growth with product led and insights led growth. To talk a bit about this, our guest for today is Mr. Harris Khan, Vice President of Growth at Rain, a trusted cryptocurrency platform in Middle East, Turkey, Africa, and Pakistan. A bit about our guest. He has more than 18 years of experience in driving growth across various firms like Noon, Kareem, amongst many others, of course. Uh, in the last 18 years, he's worked across various product teams, various marketing teams, various growth teams, and has led them to certain growth. He has also promised us that he will be sharing a couple of those nuggets from the experience of 18 years, and also give us a sneak peek into what is product led and what is insight led growth. Thank you so much for being here, Aris, and welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to host you.
Thank you, Shatis. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for inviting. I think it's always been an interesting topic for me to discuss these things. This is something that I've been doing all my life. This is my bread and butter. So, would love to discuss whatever questions that you have.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And might I say that finally we are having this podcast after possibly
Yeah,
a couple of months of back and forth. But
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we will get into that as to why this delay has happened. But before that, maybe I know I've given a small introduction about yourself. But if for our listeners, if you could just give a brief introduction about you, what you've done throughout, what is your role in Rain, etc.
Sure. Yeah, you've already done a great job on that. But since you said so, so currently I'm taking care of growth and marketing for Rain, which is the largest cryptocurrency platform among the local exchanges in the Middle East. Um, Along with Middle East, we're serving Turkey as well. We are fully operational there, but then I think we are looking into expanding into Africa and some of the other countries, including Pakistan. So it's been almost 2 years since I joined this industry, and the reason for me to join is because of my personal interest in crypto. I've been trading crypto for almost like 4.5 to 5 years, but then I came across this platform. I was just talking to some of the leaders there, and that's where I actually just picked up my interest to join them. And so far, it's been kind of a roller coaster because what has been going on in the crypto industry, people who know a bit about the industry, then what we have seen at the end of last year with the
Mhm.
FTX collapse, and prior to that, it's Vault and Celsius, some of the biggest crypto lenders. So it's as I mentioned, it's kind of a coaster with a lot of ups and downs, but at the same time, it's also very exciting and it's also very challenging, and it's very different from the regular consumer-based industry like ride hail, food delivery,
Right.
e-commerce. It's the way to manage growth in
Hmm.
this industry is completely a different ball game versus what I have been doing in the past. So at the same time, it's a great learning, but that's how this industry operates. So would love to discuss more on this, how we can actually manage to grow rain in Middle East, specifically in Turkey.
That's wonderful. And since you mentioned about rain, and like I promised, why there has been a delay in our podcast recording because something special was happening back in rain,
Yep.
and it has been in the news recently for good news, positive news. Of course, you were granted a license, and many congratulations on that. But let's
Thank you.
talk a bit about that. What difference does that license make? How will it how will
Hmm.
it become easier for the consumer possibly? And also, since we're talking about crypto, and like you said, it is different from other industries. Even as a matter of fact, it is quite different from stock markets and all of that also. And the trust
Yeah,
factor also comes into the picture, right? And this
true.
license is something that gives a trust factor. So how does that license granting change everything in that
True.
spectrum?
The approach that Rain always had is basically just always operate under a regulatory license. So for the last 5 years, Rain has been operating and serving Middle East. If you just only target this region, then Rain is already licensed by Central Bank of Bahrain for years, and through that license, we are basically serving this region. So regulated by a body which is highly accredited or is basically managed by government, like Central Bank of Bahrain, for example. It means that the customer funds are always safe unless you are basically regulated by some British version, islands or Bahamas or Seychelles. You can
Right.
also get the regulatory approvals from there, and super easy to get it, but then there's no solid checks and balances. So with proper regulation, customer funds are always secure because those regulatory bodies actually do your regular audits. It has to you have to like show like a proper reports to them. It's basically part of the procedure to stay to maintain that regulatory license.
Hmm.
So so this means I think the most important part, which you also mentioned, is trust. And when you
Right.
say trust, this means that the customer funds are always kept in safe hands. And if we just try to discuss a bit more on that, which means the customer funds are held one to one, which
Right.
means that either you deposit any fiat currency like AED, USD, or anything, or you purchase any of the cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, Ethereum. Rain will make sure to hold exactly what you hold. We will not actually just play around with that fund. We can't actually because that's
Right.
basically is our license. Now with the latest news, Rain is also regulated by ADGM's FSRA. So ADGM is Abu Dhabi Global Market. So in simple words, you can say that Rain is now regulated by in UAE as well.
Right.
And with this regulation, we actually came up with some of the very interesting features on the platform, which is direct banking deposits that customer can now, anyone who is a resident of UAE, for example, they can link their bank account on the Rain app, and from the Rain app, they can do direct deposits and direct withdrawals. So it's like a very interesting experience for users in this region to, just do the direct banking deposit, direct withdrawals, purchase anything, and it just happening at a lightning speed. I mean, it's just a matter of few minutes, you have done the deposit. Versus you go to your bank, or add to your banking, your beneficiary, and then you deposit a
Mhm.
fund. That is something which is already happening. A lot of people does that as well. But this regulatory license help us get a bank account in UAE. And this is again, as I mentioned, that now Rain has all in all two regulatory approvals. One is UAE, and one is Central Bank of Bahrain. And I think this actually goes back that to the same approach that Rain has, is basically to always operate under a regulatory license, just to make sure that we win the customer trust and we serve them the best.
Yes, absolutely. We mentioned trust is one factor, but the other thing that you mentioned right now is the real-time transaction that can happen. And I think that is also
Yeah.
something that consumers look at. Somebody who is an active trader or somebody who's doing it actively would
Yeah.
want real-time transactions to happen. So
True.
yeah, but many congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And we will discuss about Rain, but maybe in a different spectrum
Sure.
altogether now in terms of growth, product-led growth, and all. So, coming to our topic of discussion, Harris, about product-led and insights-led growth. My first question to you would be, in today's scenario, where
Hmm.
funding has dried and there is a funding winter, as we would want to call it, at least for the digital first brands that possibly both of
Yeah.
us are representing, right? Uh, so profitability has probably taken over growth today. While 2 years back, growth may have been the way to move forward. Today, profitability is. However, growth cannot be sidelined, and it is very
Hmm.
important
True.
even right now. So, what are your thoughts on that profitability versus growth? Where do you see this panning out maybe in a couple of years?
Yeah, sure. So see, I think anything that starts, it start with the bubble. If we just even go 10 years back, everyone, or maybe 15 years back, that everyone was like talking about, things which are new in the market, like e-commerce was new, then, the food delivery, Bright Hail was growing at that time. And then lately we see Chat GPT and AI is also like, so everything has its own seasons. That's what I see. But I think one of the things that I realized lately, that specifically with these investors and VCs who are basically investing in different companies, they definitely want to see something solid coming out of this. So even if you see Amazon.com, for example, they guys got profitable in 14 years time. And and I think one of the reasons that they got were managed to maintain that 14 years. I think part of that was basically they wanted to extend that, but again, it's another discussion. But they had the AWS, which is Amazon
Hmm.
Web Server. So they guys had a cash cow, which they constantly used to fund Amazon.com. But again, none of the startup at this point in time will probably be given 14 years or even 10 years to
Yeah.
start to show profitability. And I think this is something that you may not hear lately. I mean, at least I haven't heard that a major investment happening in an e-commerce platform launching again, or just something new. So I think there's some models which are kind of tried and tested in the region, and they had their own time in the past when there was a bubble, and they were being like sold at a high valuation and all that. But I think VCs have also started to understand, since dealing with this technology ecosystem for more than a decade,
Right.
um, that there has to be something solid which is coming out of the business model, and that is basically what kind of a problem that the business model is trying to solve, and what is basically the aspect of getting EBITDA positive, or in simple words,
Right.
getting profitable. So with this said, there's definitely what we see, that the investors are more conscious, more particular about investing into any business. That's one, and that goes back to how much profitability and in what time that you can build on that. But again, that's kind of a challenge for the startups as well, that they have to be much more refined, much more, you can say, sophisticated versus what we were seeing 10 years back in terms of that. So if you see that, in general, that with this, investors not ready to give you, like, just a blind win. I mean, I remember when I was a Noon was a committed funding of $1 billion. So
Right.
500 million from Saudi investment fund and 500 million from Emirates. So you're already basically, you have all the money in the world to actually grow.
You just drive
um,
growth.
exactly. So you can always buy growth, and I think it's basically, some of the companies that we have seen grown in this region have actually purchased growth for a very long time. But I think that is definitely not the right approach,
Right.
because, I mean, for a startup, yes, you can buy growth initially in the first phase, but again, that is something that you cannot maintain forever, because you have to come up with things. You have to really understand your industry. You have to understand your customers. You have to understand the audience. You have to figure out the potential, ways to grow your business
Hmm.
without basically constantly investing. So
Right.
to put simply, you can buy growth to an extent, especially in the early days of your business, but that is something you should not be maintaining forever. That's where the things, comes up, into that. What is the product led growth, what is the data
Right.
driven growth, what are growth loops, growth hacks. And that is something which has been getting very popular over time, especially in the growth and marketing industry, that, it's gradually skewing towards that, because anyone can buy growth. I mean, if you have all the money in the world, you can run, if you have some of the biggest campaigns, then you can buy growth. But that's good for one off, but again, you cannot rely on that strategy.
No.
So strategy has to be something different.
Absolutely. Probably it's not sustainable. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, startups can buy growth to a certain extent. And then you mentioned that, like I said, it's not sustainable. And
Yeah,
there are various strategies and growth hacks that are there, like product-led growth, uh,
yeah.
data-led growth, events-led growth for that matter. Coming to my next question about these different kind of growths, there are various hacks now, and yes, brands would be strategizing as to how they can go towards a particular growth strategy with minimal cost possibly. How does a brand, in your experience, how does a brand decide on what kind of growth to follow? Is it a product led growth? Is it an events led growth? Is it a data led growth, sales marketing led growth? How does a brand decide on which kind of growth, or an amalgamation of two, whatever it could be?
Hmm.
Yeah, so how
Yeah,
does
I
that?
think I think
Yeah.
fair enough. I think that primarily depends on the industry that you operate. I mean, at a very holistic level, is it B2C or B2B, or maybe a combination of both? And
Mhm.
within this, as I mentioned earlier in the call, that growing an e-commerce platform is way different from growing a crypto trading platform. Same goes with, probably growing, someone who's selling cars on the platform. So it's very different. I think one of the key aspect that, is very fundamental, um, is basically really understanding that particular industry or niche inside out, because understanding that industry inside out will actually give you tons of these things. I'm not talking about digital or marketing at this point in time. I'm just specifically looking into how that particular niche or that particular industry operates. If you know that inside out, that itself can actually give you a lot of, food for thought in terms of how you can potentially grow that thing. That's number one. Now, once you really understand that industry, this can potentially changes your whole strategy, because if you say that someone is a digital marketing manager somewhere, so that digital marketing manager or an engagement manager, he or she can run like engagement or acquisition campaigns for any industry, because that's
Right.
connected to the digital ecosystem, right? But that will be like, um, the very first step. Any company can do that, but again, you have to like go deep dive into your niche and then connect each and everything that you're trying to do in your growth and marketing. For a
Absolutely.
pure retail based business, you can have a blanket approach and you can go all in if you have money, or you can have those particular kind of campaigns designed for anyone. But again, if I just try to be specific to any sort of fintech, or any so, or for that matter crypto trading platform,
Right.
then it's a very specific, very targeted approach in terms of how you should actually bring in the right audience and the right customers. So again, and then so this is basically the very first very basic difference. But again, when you see that even with this targeted approach, the way those customers behave, the way that our industry operates is very different from that blanket approach, and the way that those customers you can acquire and how they actually interact with the platform. So understanding the industry, I think, is critical. Now, once you understand the industry, then you can, as I mentioned, incorporate into your whole growth and marketing and ecosystem. But fundamentally, the strongest pillar that you have for your growth is your product. And your product is something that should have the amazing experience, that should be solving a problem. And for any developed market, you will notice that there's not just one product. There are like multiple products trying to pretty much solve the same problem, but they're in their own way. So that way is basically is important, that you may have like six different crypto platform that a customer can use, but who understands the best product market fit, who understands the customer well, who understand that how this industry operates. So it's basically a combination, it's a team effort which will actually help you drive growth on that. Now on the product led growth, on the data driven growth, on growth hacks, growth loops, all of these things become popular because number one, they doesn't require a lot of budget. That's one. And they are basically pushing you towards understanding your particular industry, understanding your customers, understanding your product, map your product, map your growth strategies in a way that actually resonate with the potential customers. So that is basically an very holistic answer on that, but we can discuss details on anything that you
Absolutely.
prefer.
No, I think, and you touched upon the right points also. And since you mentioned about cryptocurrency, we'd probably talk about that also. But yeah, you're right. I think it's either or situation here where one has to really understand the industry and as well as the customer, and
Hmm.
that is when probably one decides the strategy that needs to be taken care of. Cryptocurrency and Rain. So I would just like
Hmm.
to talk about product led growth, and you mentioned product is one of the most important aspect of it. How does it happen in Rain? What are the product led, on a very high level standpoint, what are
Yeah.
the different product led growth strategies that Rain follows? And if you could just shed a bit of a light on how do brands, or how do you measure success of a PLG, product led growth?
Yeah, sure. So see, I think when it comes to these things, like trying to grow the business without injecting a lot of money, that you need, number one, like a particular mindset of that leader in the company who understand that a lot of things that you will do will fail,
Right.
and but eventually you will figure out some silver bullet who can actually potentially help you a lot, and that can only happen once you constantly do these kind of experimentation, constantly in a hunt to figure out new things, test new things, constantly talking to your customers. And I think it's a very simple thing that a lot of companies in this region doesn't do that, just talk to customers. There are a lot of
Hmm.
things that you can understand from the data, but data will tell you potentially what is happening and to an extent why. But if you really want to know the answer of a complete why, that is basically talking to a customer, because that will eventually give you some insights of how you can actually have the right product market fit while
Right.
understanding their problem, their challenges, or their preferences. I think I'll give you like a very basic example on that, so that we can first clear out this concept, what what is kind of product led growth and what is kind of growth loop. So um, on a product-led growth, you can say that there are two kind of things that I can see in that. One is basically what is basically your product offering in general to the customers. So product offering is basically, we can say that's a crypto trading platform,
Right.
but again, that product is basically your backbone, your fundamental, and your pillar. But you can also think of a lot of things which are basically kind of incorporated in your product. And when I say product, if I to be maybe in your app on your website, which is helping you drive growth. So one of
Right.
the very basic example of this is the referral system that everyone use. So that
Right.
referral is something that, for example, is basically incorporated into your product. Every platform that you see have a referral program, but it's a very basic and a very classic example of a growth loop as well, that if Haris referred to Satish, then if Satish likes that product, and then Satish refers two other people, and those two other people like, so it's something that can potentially help you grow the ecosystem. And this is like a very basic and a very fundamental example of growth loops. Now, when I say that so this referral can be mapped across any industry, for any niche, for any vertical. But then when you really understand your industry, then you have to define your own growth loops, that what is a growth loop that actually works for your particular business, and this may not work on any other thing for, or maybe like will not work on all of them. So that is basically the key, that what exactly you know for your particular niche and business at this point in time, that you can incorporate into your either product ecosystem or outside product ecosystem, that will help you grow the business. So on Rain, I think we had done like tons of experiments, and I think in some of the experiments, we had some amazing learnings, that things that we were not even expecting to turn out well, they turn out to be amazing on that. And they are basically more specific to the industry specific experiments, industry specific things that we have done over time. So the way that we operate is we are constantly, the framework that we follow is that we follow a sprint based growth approach, especially specifically in growth, not in marketing. That every 2 week sprint that we conduct tons of experiments, and of course some of the experiments fail, some of the experiments we see some potential, and then whatever and this 2 week sprints keep on going and going. So
Right.
within these 2 week sprints, we actually add some more experiments to the next sprint, and then we wanted to do some refined version of the previous experiments. So
Hmm.
from the experimentation team, whatever actually works best for us, we actually incorporate that into the regular customer journey as a part of the regular campaigns. Now
Right.
when I say regular campaigns, they can be happening like, once a month, once a quarter, or maybe they're always on. But that is something that we do, that experimentation is basically the key to that, and from there we actually learn and incorporate into our regular ecosystem.
Understood.
And this involves everything. On the product led, I think there's a lot that we have to still bake into our product. You may have seen this example, an e-commerce company that say that they have these these boxes. So, and these boxes, what they do is they're basically trying to increase their MAU, monthly active users, so
Hmm.
that you come to the app on daily basis, you click the box will open, and then you may potentially win something. So that's
Right.
another example. It may work, it may not work, it all depends on the subject to experimentation. But then people are basically, especially in the price sensitive market, where where people are very particular about the pricing, so they would tend to come and open up that thing on their app, so that increase. And there's one very interesting thing, that the more you interact with that platform, the more you feel comfortable at a psychological level
Yes.
to use that particular platform and system. So there are a lot of things which are basically helping you directly or indirectly once you actually move people to your platform, either for a solid product transaction against your offering, or just for the sake of just make them exciting by incorporating some sort of gamification into that.
Absolutely. I think this gamification point, and I can actually relate to it because in a lot of industries, as a matter of fact, even fintechs, even in a lot of gaming companies, they have it like you open it for
Hmm.
next 7 days and you will get something and all of that. You come to
Hmm.
the visit the app for the first 7 days and you will get here one gift or
Hmm.
two gift or whatever it is. But I think that is also something that is probably feeding into their data, that this particular
Yeah.
customer is more interested in maybe discounts or something of that sort.
Hmm.
And possibly that is where an amalgamation of product led growth and data led growth or insights led growth comes into the picture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we just expand a bit on that and talk about data led growth,
Sure.
and you did mention that there are certain datas, and then customer feedback also gets converted into a qualitative data itself, right, which gives you insight. So where do you see data led growth coming into the picture, along with product led growth? How do you see both of them having synergies and going in tandem? How do you see that?
Yeah, so see, I think they both ideally, they both have to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Product data, every system has to be talking to each other, so they understand, and then of course things have to be happening kind of a real time. But see, on the product level, if you just start with the product, then there are like a lot of, so it's a world in itself. And when you say product led growth, it has multiple examples. So one of the example that we discussed, referral, these kind of boxes. But
Hmm.
so these are the things that basically incorporated in your product. But again, there's another aspect of product led growth, which is basically a technical growth, that You're not
Right.
like just doing right away in this, but for example, one of the example that we had been working lately is how we can actually make your platform search engine friendly, for example. And that is also like is a kind of combination of the marketing and then product in that aspect. So product is pretty much touching upon your each and every ecosystem of the growth and marketing. Now data is something that is also very critical. And ideally in a best shape and form, if you want to build a growth engine out of that, then growth engine is basically a best example to say that how data and the product actually work together and build something which is specifically to your particular needs. And that growth engine doesn't mean that you have to build a whole product in the background. It can be built on the existing CRM. It's basically
Mhm.
the logic based out of your understanding and learning and incorporating the right product market fit on that. So that's where the data and product comes into the play. But um, they're like again like tons of things that we can discuss as particular examples. That for example, one of the challenges generally for any regulated crypto platform is basically how
Mhm.
you can potentially onboard a customer, because you ask like these tons of things, 10 to 12 different questions and 2 to 3 different documents to be uploaded. So it's not very easy to actually onboard. So
Yeah.
for a journal, I can say e-commerce or right delivery platform, the people who started to initiate a sign up and people who potentially did the first transaction, that's around 50-60% easy. But again, if you talk into about these fintechs specifically with a um, very thorough onboarding process, then
Yes.
it's that ratio really drops. And
Absolutely.
and this is like one of the example, like again very basic example in terms of how you can potentially see the data, where exactly the best maximum drop off is happening, how you
Mhm.
can improve that. Because again, I mean, in the early days even Rain was investing and buying growth, but that we eventually have to change because we cannot constantly keep on buying the growth in the long term. and
Right.
and that's where we actually try to jump into all of these things, how we can improve that and how we can figure out all of these things in a best possible way. So so again, I mean, this is again a small example, but when it comes to data, you can like go deep into data. I mean, when it's that each and every potential data point that is connected to the customer, that what are the different things that a customer can do on your platform. The customer can deposit, customer can buy crypto, customer can sell crypto, customer can send and receive from multiple platforms. So when you say data, that you probably have to answer everything from the data on what is happening, not why may not be happening, but what is happening.
Right.
And so for example, if someone sends crypto to Brain platform, then a growth person should actually know that where that crypto is coming from, and how the customer is basically using that deposit fund on the platform. And
Mhm.
this basically in connection to industry, a lot is based on the crypto dynamics as well in terms of the crypto industry. So uh, if you see that in industry, that if there's a bull market, then the searches, or you can say the demand of the crypto increase by minimum 10x. And when
Mhm.
you say that demand increase by 10x, it's basically that you see in your whole data that how customer is behaving, how customer is transacting, what's the volume that there. So it's basically the whole environment around you, that the Bitcoin is all time high, for example. I can tell you that if this news comes out in the market that Bitcoin is all time high, for example, then our funnel will automatically improve, our trading volumes will automatically spike.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that basically is the industry specific, and that's basically is probably the time where you have to look into that. Is it the right time to invest? Yes. At this time, even if we go and invest all the money in the world, it will still help in terms of very top funnel growth marketing, on marketing and branding,
Right.
but not in the best shape and form when it comes to looking into growth versus looking into the right time and then invest. So again, I mean, I'm not sure if I just managed to answer well, but we can discuss that for hours, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, and you're right. I mean, regardless of not just crypto, but even in the general trading market, when there is a bullish behavior, these apps
Hmm.
that have come in now. Initially, there were not a lot of apps even for trading, but these apps that come in now will
Yeah.
see a surge in their MAUs and DAUs also, and that is something but natural. But that's a very interesting point that you've put in, and I would maybe that's an extraction from the data led growth that I'm talking about. But in a market which is right now scenario like today, where people are still, I would say, for the lack of better word, still a bit hesitant on investing in crypto as of now
Mm-hmm.
because of where the market is going, where the regulations are, and all of that. Uh, from a data standpoint, you still get to know, at least for
Yeah.
your app, who is probably an active user, who's a dormant user, who basically comes back when it comes to the bull, when there is a bullish behavior or something of that sort. Uh,
Yeah.
how does that happen, and these data points, how does that help you, develop an experimentation, develop a campaign like you mentioned before? How, with all these data that you have with you, how are you able to, experiment and develop a campaign around these consumers?
Sure. So see, in these time when the crypto prices are not basically, it's like roughly like 50% less than its all-time high. So all-time high, for example, for Bitcoin was 68,000. Now
Right.
it's hovering around, like few days back it was 30. For now it's 26, I think. But yeah, but it will keep on happening up and down. So in these markets, we can still call it like a bearish market at this point in time. Most important thing is basically the customer engagement at this point in time. When we say customer engagement, it's basically just making sure that you constantly educate them, constantly inform them, constantly stay on top of their minds. Uh, and because they have already interacted with you, and that's where we can actually initiate the engagement. So
Right.
they may be the potential customer, they may be the existing customer, they're the customers, and they're like different cohorts or different segments. If you just see from the customer personification, so there are customers who are basically purely investors who invested in this platform and then they forget about it. Then there are customers who are regular traders who are conducting 2 to 3 days every day, for example. Then there are different type of customers who are just using the app for just to seeing the pricing, for example. And then so forth and so forth. You can have like 10 to 12 different segments out of that, and primarily focusing on the personification of customers. So then in these personification, so you cannot treat in fintech industry all of these customers who are falling into different stages of the funnel. So for example, sign up, approved, then trading customer, or prior to that depositing customer. So this you can maybe do in e-commerce, for example, but here you cannot do. So you have to like really understand the customer. So one customer may have invested $2 million with you. One customer has invested $100. So they both are different. So one is a VIP
Right.
customer, one is a retail customer. And in terms of the customer behavior, that it's, by the way, in this industry, it's very difficult to define what a churned customer is, because the customer may not have been doing anything for 6 months, but then all of a sudden he come and
Right.
invest $1 million again. So it's basically the personification of customer and how you treat that particular persona and that particular cohort through engagement. What kind of information would a VIP need if we just want to do an engagement or information campaign versus a retail customer? And that is
Mhm.
basically and there's another important aspect of this, basically at what particular stage that customer is in its crypto journey. So
Right.
crypto is, if we just try to see crypto as a whole journey, then they started off with the with just learning about crypto, basic things, and then they eventually graduate themselves into something in which they're confident
Mhm.
enough to conduct trades. So different perspective, different angles, and how you actually understand all of this for that particular market. And I would love to come to that, how GCC market is very different from Turkish market, because we operate in both of these markets. So again, it comes down to the same topic of product market fit and how you understand your customer well. But engagement is basically, in simple words, is the key in these market situations, because they're customers who interacted with you in the past, and now you have to give them something back, which is
Mhm.
basically valuable for them. And that value, anything which is valuable for them, is you can only do once you really understand the customer, which particular cohort that customer falls into, and how you want to treat that cohort is the key. And this is like very generic answer. We can discuss specific examples into crypto, but that's basically is important, because if you, for example, if you run a growth campaign to a VIP customers, deposit and get $50 cash back, it will probably not even matter to the VIP. But again,
Right.
for retail customers, they were like, okay, it's not a bad deal to actually just look into that and potentially explore something out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good example that you've given, VIP versus retail. And The other cohort that you mentioned was somebody who's just, monitoring the prices. Maybe that person uses a different platform to invest, or is just an eager, comes and goes, not very regular into trading. So that could be a different cohort. You also talked about engagement. So that is where I would want to ask you. Today, there are a lot of modern
Hmm.
marketing stack, right, which help you in engagement. There's CRMs, there's CDPs, there's CEPs. Their naming conventions are all over the place,
Yeah, yeah.
and they, of course, they all have their own speciality. But if we talk about a engagement platform, right, and if we just talk about, say, these, we take these two three cohorts or segments that you
Hmm.
mentioned, a VIP or retail customer, and
Hmm.
in middle somebody who's just observing it. How does an engagement platform first of all help you in engaging with all the three segments? And what are some of the campaigns that you possibly run, or what are some of the data points that you look at, like the example that you mentioned? But if you could just further elaborate a bit on that, giving these three examples, how do you see that happening, and what role does an engagement platform play there?
Yeah, so I think engagement, as I mentioned, is very important, and so is the engagement platform as well in that. So, I mean, so for example, if you do the uh, let's discuss MAU, monthly active users. But again, monthly active users, you have to see from the different data points. So monthly active users at a trading level, and then the monthly active users at a session level, for example. So if you just try to see at a session level, then of course there are 3 to 4x more versus the trading. And
Mhm.
that is directly pretty much connected to the market situations at this point in time. Again, I mean, when it comes to product-led growth as well, so we know that there's a particular cohort who is just coming on the platform, looking into particular set of currencies, or maybe just looking into the charts and then just going off in a particular time frame. So that is basically can actually help us sense that, okay, this is the cohort which is basically coming to see the pricing at this point in time. Let's assume that. And
Right.
and then I think with this engagement platform, we can pretty much automate a lot of these things. So one of the things that we automated is, if the crypto price goes up and down by X percentage within this much time, then we just send them a push instead of they guys waiting and coming to the platform. We just try to take a proactive approach in terms of giving an update on the pricing. So this is like one, again, a kind of common practice in the crypto industry. So this is one thing that an engagement platforms help us with. Now when it comes to having different personification of customers, then we have to, like, number one, identify these 12 cohorts, tag these 12 cohorts in a way that and then plan an engagement activity on those 12 different cohorts on an engagement platform.
Right.
So again, a lot of this is basically is an effort of the product market fit on the product side, and how we actually sync up our product with the engagement platform on that particular level. And then it's basically the experience that the growth or the marketing team has on the engagement platform to execute these campaigns well and see the reporting on the platform and in our data warehouse on that. We can discuss in more details in terms of what are the different campaigns that we do for retail, whether it's marketing, whether it's growth, whether it's incentive, whether it's education, whether it's pricing, whether it's information. So, um, but again, this is basically how the our Martech stack is operating at this point in time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Understood. And I think we will. This has given me enough prompt to invite you for another podcast to discuss further more on these things.
Sure, sure, sure.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, but I think we've talked a bit about product led growth, data led growth, how a customer engagement platform also uh, operates and helps you in driving
Hmm.
those adoption. Right. My last question to you, or rather, my second last question to you would
Sure,
be
sure.
around the challenges that you faced, and this could not just be limited to, say, your experience currently in rain, but also overall. What are some of the challenges that you faced when it comes to product led or data led growth, and how do you overcome that? And this possibly could help a lot of growth marketers who are listening to this podcast right now. This would really help them. So yeah, if you could just elaborate
So
on that.
yeah, I think again, I mean, every industry has its own challenges. So if we see that from the growth angle, generally, and this is kind of an industry level problem. I think no one has any solution for that. It's basically I mean, this region is heavily influenced by iOS. So for example, iOS privacy policy post 14.5. So that is basically really screwed up attribution at a considerable level. So that's like just one small thing. But again, in terms of challenges, it's Again, basic ones are basically where the crypto industry operates at this point in time, how regulators wants us to onboard the customer, but we have to do that because this actually saves us from other things as well in terms of safety and security. But generally, the challenges are at this point in time is primarily the crypto industry in general, because that has basically really um, not giving enough confidence to a lot of new traders to join and invest in crypto. But again, as I mentioned, when the bull run happens, then a lot of customers will come. Uh, and then that is something that we see, that a lot of customers who are already onboarded with us, they signed up with us in the past, but they're probably waiting for the right time. So it's again, I think engagement is possibly that what I personally see is the key. When the right time comes, you should be on top of the customer mind through engagement.
Wonderful. I think initially when you pointed out that the awareness is something which probably is one of the challenges of many challenges that may persist, right? But that's a very good point for even for the marketer, especially in the crypto
Hmm.
space all over the world, that in their campaigns, in their ads, it's the awareness, not just the brand awareness,
Hmm.
but overall awareness of the cryptocurrency, and that will probably go a longer way for them to also
Yeah,
build loyalty, right? But thank you so much for
absolutely.
that. And I think my last question to you, and this is something that
Yeah,
we generally
sure,
ask our speakers, our guest also, and just to end on a lighter
sure.
note, and give a
Yeah,
food
yeah,
for thought
please.
to our listeners also. But I want to take a footballing example here, because Middle
Hmm.
East of lately has been a news for football.
Hmm.
Saudi League has been pushing for a lot of players, and they're coming in. So let's just superimpose, the marketing, or rather the growth function. What's the growth function within
Hmm.
marketing? If we just superimpose that to a footballing structure, where do you
Hmm.
see growth as a function when it comes to a football team,
Hmm.
and why is that?
I think I don't want to be biased, but I don't want to sound biased, but I think if you try to see from the lens of football, then I think it's currently probably a striker in that aspect, because or maybe like on the forefront, because and it's actually true that your social team is the one who's basically interacting, and dealing with whatever is going on social. So they're basically the face of your company. They're the one who will basically anything that has been built, I mean, they are the one who basically carry that, and you just make sure to go so the last mile is basically your growth
Right.
team in that. So yeah, I would say striker, center forward, max I can go right, left, and but yeah, not beyond that.
Not behind that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
And
what
I
I say.
think,
Yeah,
yeah, I think
sure.
all the growth marketers today who follow football are very proud that they're all strikers or wingers for that matter. But
Yeah,
Harris, thank you so much for this. Let me just say, although I started by saying that we've been going back and forth for some time, but it's been worth the wait. The podcast has been wonderful. You've given us
thank you.
some wonderful insights about product, about data, about how a customer engagement platform works. What are the different campaigns that maybe growth marketers today, in a scenario where profitability uh, takes the center stage, should look at,
Hmm.
especially for a cryptocurrency platform. So thank you so much for that. And
Thank you.
it was, like I said, it was and it is a pleasure to host you, and we'll hopefully host you more very soon, and in more
Absolutely.
podcasts.
Absolutely, inshallah. No, thank you so much. It's been an interesting discussion, and happy to jump into more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thanks
much,
a lot.
Harry. Yeah. With
Thank
that,
you. Have a good day.
thank you. With that, folks, we end our podcast, and do stay tuned. We have an exciting lineup coming up. Till then, stay safe, take care, goodbye.